What is up, Giants fans? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Tommy's Takes. I'm your host, Tommy G. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with me, and I appreciate that. Please like, subscribe, turn notifications on. Make sure you're the first one to get the content as soon as it drops. Check me out over on Twitter, doing big things, Tommy G 105, all the latest Giants news, rumors, takes, content every day, consistent. Anytime you want it, it's there. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe on Twitter. And most importantly, the Giants Country team is coming on strong. Articles, podcasts, exclusive interviews, you name it. So please subscribe to Giants Country YouTube. Check them out over on Twitter. Amazing things going on there. And as this season for the New York Giants heats up, so does Tommy's Takes, Giants Country. We're going to have it here for you. For those that have already supported, liked, commented, subscribed, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Really means the world. Without you guys and gals, the show doesn't go on. So thank you for that. And without further ado, let's get right into it. Giants-Jaguars this Sunday, Duval County, Jacksonville. Big game. Seems like big game after big game for the Giants. Giants 5-1, Jags 2-4, and they go into the game as an underdog, the Giants, right? Like, when the game ended on Sunday versus Baltimore, I said to myself, I would say the Giants are a 3-point favorite. Well, Jacksonville's a 3-point favorite. So that's kind of shocking. But if you're Brian Dable, you're putting that right on the board, on the bulletin board for every player to see when they walk by, because that is ridiculous. Giants have beat perennial playoff teams in Tennessee, Green Bay, and Baltimore so far this season as a rebuilding team. Where the mathematics adds up that they would be an underdog to a 2-4 Jacksonville team, I don't know. Not a huge betting guy. I will say Jacksonville's a lot better than their record is, but still shocking that they're the underdog. But the Giants clearly don't mind, and they tied the record for most consecutive wins as an underdog in NFL history. Really unbelievable. And when you talk about earning your respect, getting your respect from your opponent, this is how you do it. You beat teams that are better than you on paper. You beat teams that are the favorite. Kudos to Brian Dable and the coaching staff. He has gotten the most out of this team. They were very slim to none with depth when they came into the season. And I remember saying in August, late August, this team cannot afford any critical injuries. What happens? First couple of weeks, injury. And this team, give them credit, they have done everything right in regards to preparation, toughness, attitude, fight, and even with the depth issues, even with the injuries, they push through every Sunday. So this is a team that's going to fight, and whether they're the underdog or not, doesn't matter. They come in riding a 3-game winning streak after another fourth quarter comeback victory over the Ravens. Giants are the first team this century to overcome double-digit second-half deficits in 3 of their first 6 games. Think about that for a second. This is not just regular winning and the Giants have an easy schedule and the Giants have a soft schedule, or they're catching breaks here and there. I mean, look at Sunday versus the Ravens, for instance. Baltimore didn't dominate the game, but they led for the majority of the game. They were up 20-10, I believe, with like 6 minutes left. And what happens? The Giants forced 2 turnovers on the Ravens' last 2 drives. Offense scores twice. Could have been a third time if Barkley decided to run it in, but that was an incredibly smart football play. So this Giants team is for real. And the last 3 seasons, the Giants have had 3 come from behind victories like this: 2007, 2011, and 2016. And we all know what happened in those first 2 seasons. They got the ring. So stuff to be excited about. When you really think about this Giants team, come from behind victory, it's really remarkable, and it's good company for them to be in. I mean, who would have thought you'd be saying this about this Giants team 6 weeks into the season? And again, speaks to the job the coaching staff has done, speaks to the job Joe Shane has done, bringing in players, finding the right players off the street. There's guys out there that probably be working a 9-to-5 job if they didn't get that call from Joe Shane. Salute to them, working hard, busting their tail to get back on the field. But good company to be in. And let's be honest, the Giants have rolled the back of their superstar running back, Saquon Barkley. Comes in his Week 7 tilt as the NFL's second leading rusher behind Nick Chubb. Leading rusher let's say by 50 yards. If he could surplus 50 yards, Chubb has him by about 55 yards, he can become the number one leading rusher. But who cares? 616 yards, 5.2 yards per carry. He has, I believe it's like 20 catches, 160 yards, 5 runs of 20 plus yards, which is very important when you talk about Saquon, because something that people talked about him negatively in the last couple of seasons was he didn't have that burst. He didn't have that explosion. Well, 6 games, 5 runs of 20 plus yards. That's pretty explosive to me. And the funny thing about Saquon, and I wanted to talk about this for a second. The last couple of years, and let's take injuries out for a second, even though I know that's impossible. The games that Saquon played, it seemed like once it wasn't working in the first half, it never worked. It would be a game of 20 carries, 49 yards, no touchdowns. This Saquon is different. This Saquon doesn't give up. The first half of the London game, nothing was really popping. What happens in the second half? Breaks off a big run, catches the drag route over the middle for a large gain. What happens versus the Ravens? Nothing popping off in the first half. Second half, he gets going. And once he gets going, the Giants get going. Plain and simple. And he is on an absolute tear, Barkley. I said it today on Twitter. He's the straw that stirs this Giants drink. Shout out to, Daniel Jones, Bellinger, the offensive line. Football is the consummate team sport, but Barkley is the straw that stirs the drink. And this team goes as Barkley goes. And you see it week after week after week. And, Jones leads the league in the last 3 weeks in CPOE, completed percentage over expected. He's doing more with less. He's going against the odds on some of his accuracy completions. But this is Barkley's team. And as much as Jones improves and pushes forward, you could see in the first half versus the Ravens, wasn't a lot happening on offense until Barkley got going. Now, Jones did put the team on his back, had a great drive in the second half, just like he did in the second half versus Green Bay. You're starting to see the quarterback is now taking on the identity of the football team as a second half quarterback, a second half team, and that'll change. I know there's some trepidation around that, especially with Giants fans that, why don't we play better in the first half? If we played better in the first half, we'd blow teams out. Well, this is not that type of team. And Giants fans need to be happy where they're at, because you got a linebacking core that's basically all backups. You got an interior offensive line that's patchwork. You have a rookie right tackle, rookie tight end, rookie basically number one receiver now in Wandale, him or Slayton. So there's going to be growing pains. And right now, those growing pains happen in the first half. Might have a lot to do with adjustments, substitutions at halftime. When you have a great coaching staff, they can go in at halftime and say, hey, this is not working. This is working. This needs to be changed. This is not going to fly. And that's what the Giants have done. Let's be honest. When you really dig deep into how this team has functioned, it's been a well-coached team. It's been a smart team that doesn't make a lot of mistakes, doesn't really hurt themselves. And they have a make or break defense that's, believe it or not, and the Giants defense have had some tough spots, especially against the run. The Giants defense has struggled immensely against the run, but they're 8th in points allowed on defense. So shout out to Wink Martindale. Shout out to this defense. They did it again Sunday versus the Ravens when it wasn't looking good. It was looking like it was going to be a tough defensive day. They were struggling to cover Andrews. They were struggling to stop the run mightily with Drake and Lamar. So shout out to Wink and the team, because it is not easy in the NFL to come back in the second half. It's not easy to, put what happened behind you in the first half and come back. So you got to give them credit for that. Because think about it, it's a 4-quarter game, plain and simple, right? So if you're gonna have it, if you would have to pick, what would you rather your team to be the strongest? It's gonna be the second half. There's no way around that. You don't want a team that's strong in the first half and chokes in the second half. That's the last thing you want. So kudos to this Giants team coming in on fire, riding their running game, riding a bend but don't break defense. And they got a Jaguars team that's going to be a tough one. They're 2-4. They're a lot better than their record indicates. As a matter of fact, when I was kind of researching into this game, I was surprised at some of the things I found, because they have a kind of a Jekyll and Hyde personality, Jacksonville. They got big wins over the Colts and Chargers, 2 perennial playoff teams, and then 2 bad losses to Washington and Houston, two teams that are struggling. So breaking them down further, it's intriguing. You really start to look at why and the why, and it's inconsistency. And it's the amazing part of the fact that the Giants haven't struggled with inconsistency. And no, I don't mean inconsistency as far as they're better in the second half than the first half. I mean inconsistent as far as you put up a stinker for a whole Sunday, right? So bad losses to Washington and Houston. Young quarterback Trevor Lawrence for Jacksonville, starting to slowly but surely come into his own. He's had some tough spots this season, but for the most part, he's played pretty well. 9 touchdowns, 4 intercepts, 17 passes of 20+ yards. So the Giants need to be careful. Don't get caught looking in the backfield. Don't get caught on play actions. Don't let these guys behind you, because that's a lot. That ranks towards the top of the NFL. 17 passes of 20+ yards for Trevor Lawrence. Also, 91.9 QB rating, solid. Only problem is with Lawrence is he has turned the ball over. He had the game against the Eagles a few weeks ago where he fumbled the ball 4 times. Jacksonville had that game. They could easily be 3-3 right now with a big win over the Eagles, who are still undefeated. But Lawrence fumbled 4 times that game, really struggled, and he's a young quarterback, and young quarterbacks are going to struggle. So Giants need to get after him early, often, make him uncomfortable, go after him. Don't take any prisoners. I love the formation that Wink had versus Baltimore, where he lined up, it was Tibbs, Leo, and I believe Dexter, lined them up all in the same gap. And then as soon as the ball was snapped, they attacked. Baltimore had no answer for that. They had no idea what was coming. I would like to see something along those lines against a young quarterback like Trevor Lawrence. The Jags D, very strong up front. They're a top 5 in the NFL in rush defense, only giving up 3.6 yards per carry, 536 yards. Their pass D is their weakness. They have a young secondary, very similar to Baltimore. They've given up a ton of pass yardage, but they also have 7 interceptions, which ranks near the top of the league. Was the same case last week for Baltimore, which Giants did a pretty good job not turning the ball over via interception. The D is led by 4th-year pro out of Kentucky, Josh Allen. A lot of Giants fans will remember Josh Allen, had him circled as who they wanted in the 2019 draft when the Giants went and took Daniel Jones, to the surprise of many. And Josh Allen has been a stud. He's up there in the NFL with pressures, 23 pressures. He's constantly getting after the quarterback. He was the number 7 overall pick in the draft for a reason. Giants got to make sure he's accounted for. You don't want to let Josh Allen beat you. But at the same time, on the other side of that line, rushing off the edge is Trayvon Walker, number 1 overall pick this past offseason. So it's going to be interesting to see how they tilt coverage. Evan Neal played a lot better last week. Good for him. Good for the rookie. I think he'll be matched up on Josh Allen a lot. I'm sure Jacksonville will move them around. But when you think about it, top 5 run defense, only giving up 3.6 yards per carry. They got the 2 stud edge rushers. And they also have 2 monsters in the middle in their defensive tackles. So going to be a challenge. And they do bring a skill set, the Jaguars, that is tough for a team to deal with. And when you have 2 stud edge rushers, you have 2 monsters in the middle, and you have a top 5 run defense, that's tough for the Giants. So people that were saying this was going to be a walk in the park for New York, not going to be a walk in the park. They also boast a very strong run game, Jacksonville. 2-headed monster in Travis Etienne and James Robinson. Etienne more kind of the change of pace back, which Giants have struggled against change of pace backs. Think Pollard, think Drake. They've struggled all season long. So I expect Etienne to get a bunch of carries. Robinson has done very, very well this year. Robinson's averaging 4.2 yards per carry. Etienne, 5.6. So he's that running back you want to keep your eye on. Robinson's kind of the workhorse, but a 2-headed monster, and they're ranked 9th in rushing yards per game. So Giants, who have struggled immensely against the run this season, they get another tough challenge. And you've seen it last week versus Baltimore. The Giants' run defense is a problem. There's no way to look around that. Leo came back last week. My expectation is this week he'll be a little further along and getting his legs back under him, which will be a big help for the Giants. But you heard the broadcast. They were just getting gashed for large amounts of rushing yardage, and they did a good job bucking down in the second half. But for the first 2.5, almost 3 quarters, the Ravens ran at will. They got whatever they wanted off this Giants defense. And the scary part was that a lot of it was right up the middle. But like I said, You have Dexter Lawrence up the middle. He's proven to be top 5 NFL defensive lineman this season. He's having an unbelievable year. You have Leo, another game back now from the injured list, his second game back. He's going to get his legs under him, get back into it. You have Kayvon Thibodeau, who's been doing a fantastic job. Every week he's coming. And the rookie came last week because he got the sack strip to end that game. So the Giants have the defensive line. You don't know if you get Azeez back this week. Azeez has missed some time. You're kind of waiting for the Giants to put that defensive line together, almost like, the Thanos, the Infinity Rings. When can they put this defensive line together? Because I think when the Giants do finally put this D-line together, and they play a few games and they get going in the right direction, this will be one of the best defensive lines in football. I'm not going to compare. I'm not going to reminisce to the old NASCAR defenses the Giants used to have, but I will shout out Michael Strahan, Osi Umeara, Matthias Kiwanuka, Justin Tuck, and the gang, because that was an awesome defensive line, and they won championships with that. So I think this D-line, once it gets its feet under it, is going to be phenomenal. They've already shown, sparks. Dexter Lawrence, has almost 90 PFF grade so far this season. I mean, it's really been remarkable when you look at it for Dexter Lawrence, just the year he's had, and good for him. Giants smartly picked up his 5th-year option for next year, so they get him on the cheap. I believe it was around $11 million. You got Thibodeau, rookie, playing well, creating a spark. You have Leonard Williams, you know what you're going to get out of him. And once Azeez comes back, that's it. This is going to be the strength of his defense, because linebacking core is not great. Secondary has struggled. You're going to rely on his defensive line to get pressure. And you hope it happens this game versus a young quarterback, because let's be honest, pressure bursts pipes. And look what happened to Lamar once the Giants started getting to him last week. He couldn't handle it, and he got the strip fumble. He threw the interception off the bad snap. There was pressure on that play. So once the pressure comes, quarterbacks are completely different. Look for the Giants defensive line to get after Trevor Lawrence early and often. Let's go into the matchups. We'll start Jags front 7 versus Saquon Barkley. It seems like every game I kind of center around Barkley, and especially in the matchup portion of the show, because let's be honest, I mean, he is the Giants. The Giants are going to go as he goes. If a team could stop him, force Daniel Jones to have to pass, that's what they want. And that's what these teams want when they come into games. They want to stop Barkley, want to force Daniel Jones to pass. They want Jones to show them he could pass out of it and he could pass the team back, which he's did pretty well against Green Bay in London and Baltimore at MetLife last week. But Jaguars, like I said, have the 4th best run D in the NFL right now, spearheaded by the 2 monsters on the inside, Devon Hamilton, and hopefully I say this right, Forlano Folatuski, combined 638 pounds for the defensive tackle. So that's a lot of man and meat in the middle. Barkley might want to stay out of there for the most part, but if you do, you got the 2 beasts on the edges. You got Josh Allen, who's been playing at a very high level against the run. You have the rookie and Trayvon Walker, who's been coming along very nicely. The 2 main cogs of the linebacking core are Devin Lloyd, rookie, another rookie. He's played well, struggled in coverage, but has played well against the run. And you have Olunike's the other linebackers. So those 2 linebackers have combined for 117 tackles, 13 pressures. They have missed 18 tackles together, though, which is something to keep an eye on. When you talk about a running back that could break tackles, that's Saquon Barkley. So look for tackles, look for the broken tackles out there on the field. They could get there, but can they break down, wrap up, and take Barkley down? Can they go at it? Can they go at his legs? We're going to see, because it's going to be tough. So you got 2 rookies now out there. You got Devin Lloyd and you got Trayvon Walker. You also have, when you really look at the Jags defense, their linebackers struggle in coverage. Their linebackers have given up. I think Devin Lloyd has given up the most receptions for a linebacker in the NFL. So what does that have to do with Barkley? Utilize him in the pass game. Get him out there on wheel routes. Get him out there in space motion, and they've done a good job of that. Do it more this game. Don't just send Barkley up the middle against those 2 behemoths or on the outside so the 2 stud pass rushers can chase him down. You could do a little bit of that. You're going to keep the defense honest, but get Barkley open in space on these linebackers, because he could do some serious damage out there. They have a hard time covering, especially the rookie Lloyd. So look for Barkley to be out and about, slot receiver, motion, out of the backfield on wheel routes, screens, anything that gets him on that linebacker core on that second level, he's going to do damage. And I think he will. I think you're going to see a big game from Barkley. He had the shoulder issue that first popped up versus Green Bay in London. The shoulder issue was a little bit of a problem versus Baltimore. And it's kind of a scary injury because it looks like he loses feeling. He's kind of grasping his fingers, trying to get feeling back. So you never really want to see that. But he's tough as nails. He's had enough injuries. He knows the narrative on him, and he doesn't want to stay out of football games. So I expect the Giants to kind of manage that shoulder injury, whether maybe limit a few snaps here and there, cut back. Also talked about doing the same thing with Dexter Lawrence. He's played like 90-something% of the team's snaps. But it's hard when those are essentially your two best players this season. Barkley on the offensive side of the ball and Dexter Lawrence on the defensive side of the ball. And you want your best horses in the race. So that should be interesting. But, look for Barkley to have an effective performance against the Jags linebackers. Just not good in the passing game. And you got rookies out there. And, secondary's not great either. So if you get one of these cornerbacks matched up on Barkley, he could easily do some damage. And that brings me to the next matchup. You got the Giants front four against Trevor Lawrence. And I talked about this already a little bit in the open, but I wanted to go into a little more detail here. So Lawrence's issue this season has been up and down. He's had the touchdown passes. He's had productivity. He could pass the ball. He's had touchdowns. He's had deep passes. He's been able to hit some. Christian Kirk has been a big weapon for Lawrence, a big weapon for the Jags. But he could be had. And if you think about it, you got Dexter Lawrence, where we'll go through this again, 90.4 PFF rating so far. The only three interior D linemen that are ahead of Lawrence right now, Aaron Donald, Chris Jones, and DJ Reader. So, New York Giants fans, you have one of the best interior defensive linemen in the NFL right now. And he's the real deal. And Trevor needs to keep an eye on him. You also have Kayvon Thibodeau. 3 straight games of 3+ pressures. That's awesome for a rookie. And I know Giants fans were thirsting for that first sack. Well, you got it, and you got it in a big way. And I heard some people calling Thibodeau the closer. I like it. If you could bring it, bring it. We'll see if Azeez could get back healthy. Not 100% sure yet. I would lean more towards probably no, that he's not going to play. And Leo, can Leo continue to heal? And what kind of fronts does Wink show Lawrence, right? How does Lawrence react to it? Does he have the 4 fumble game he had versus Philly, or does he have 0 turnovers like he had in 3 of the other games? That's going to be interesting. And the other interesting part is going to be the linebackers of the New York Giants. They need to do what they need to do in pass coverage versus Robinson and Athene. This Giants much maligned Giants linebacker core needs to improve. And if it doesn't improve, it's going to sink this defense. And the Giants do not need that. So Giants linebackers need to step up. I think the D-line does fine against Trevor Lawrence. He might hit a couple of big plays. I think he turns it over a couple of times too. Next matchup, Daniel Jones versus the Jacksonville secondary. I'm going to stick to my guns on this. I think the Jags can be had through the air, whether it's Barkley, whether it's Wan'Dale Robinson. We've seen him do a solid job his first game back on Sunday. And the Jags secondary can be had. They have interceptions. I think they have 7 interceptions right now. It's like 3rd or 4th in the NFL. But they've given up a ton of passing yards. They're right up there with Baltimore. But how does it happen? What do you do? I think the Giants just need to continue motions, some trickeration. Not going to have Tony back. Not going to have Golladay back. Continue using Daniel Bellinger. Daniel Bellinger has been a revelation to this team. I mean, my goodness, for a rookie tight end, and the Giants have thirsted for a good, strong tight end since the days of Boss and Shockey. And you pick this kid up out of the 4th round, and he could catch the ball. He could block. He's excited, energetic out there, does whatever it takes. He's just can't say enough about Daniel Bellinger. Look for him to have a big game versus the secondary and versus these linebackers of Jacksonville that struggle to cover. Watch that. I think Bellinger has a big game. Also, attack, just go after it. Jags don't rotate a lot in the secondary. They don't rotate a lot as a defense in general. So you do have that fatigue factor. You do have, do the Giants run a lot of hurry up? Do they run a lot of no huddle, right? Do they try to wear that defense that doesn't sub a lot down? That's a possibility. And I think that's something you go after if you're Kafka and Jones and the New York Giants. Get this Jacksonville secondary tired. Get the linebackers tired. Get Wandale on some drags, some slants, quick outs, get him open in space. I love how they did the double drags last Sunday that popped open, and maybe Slayton gets one over the top. I think that's what the Giants really need to do. Just attack the secondary, attack the linebackers. They've showed the inability to really cover against the pass pretty much the whole season. And so I look for the Giants to attack through the air. The Jags have showed they can stop the run. So it always, goes into that, do we play to our strengths, or do we play to the other team's weakness? And what's interesting versus Baltimore last week, the Giants came out and they said, Baltimore is one of the worst pass defensive teams in the league. We're going to come out, pass, 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 pass. And it didn't work the first drive and a half. It didn't work. And I don't think this Giants passing offense is quite there to carry an entire game of passing the ball. But this is a good matchup. This is a favorable matchup. Younger secondary, non-cohesive, younger linebacking core that's given up a ton of receptions, and they don't sub out a lot. They don't rotate. You could have that fatigue set in. So attack, attack, attack through the air. Now we're going to go through players to watch. Who are my players to watch coming up Sunday? First one's going to be Wandale Robinson. This is why. Jags are great against the run, but they could give up some catches. They could give it up in the air. They have given it up in the air. There's been very few games where they've limited the pass and attack. Wandale showed the quickness, explosiveness, and route running that caused the Giants to take him in the second round in the draft that just passed. So I look for Wandale to have a big game. I look for him to be matched up one-on-one a lot in the slot and cause terror in the soft zones, cause terror in man-to-man, especially with Kafka, doing a lot of layering routes, doing a lot of double drags, some picks out there. We won't call them picks, but some rub routes out there. Another player, Feliciano, I thought he struggled last week. I thought for the most part of the season, he struggled. He did have a little bit of an injury issue last week or whatever the issue was. And you got Nick Gates coming on strong. And Nick Gates is the Cinderella story, almost lost his leg, tons of surgeries. And, as of this week, he's practicing, he's snapping the ball to Jones. So I think Feliciano needs to have a big game. I think he needs to get himself grounded, focused, start playing better. Has not played well. It's going to be a tough matchup with the two behemoths for Jacksonville, on the nose of that defensive line. So look for Feliciano to either step it up or step out. Next up, Leonard Williams. So Jags have a great running game, one of the better running games in the league. It's a two-headed monster. So both backs could do it. Both backs could break runs. Leo needs to really solidify the middle of that line with Dexter. Didn't really look like Leo was 100% back last week, but I'll take Leo at 70% over anybody else at 100%, especially of the options the Giants had. But look for Leo to have a big game. I look for him to step up between him, Dexter, Thibodeau. I think they start to shut this run down a little bit. Not going to be easy. I think it's going to be a competitive game, but starts with stopping the run. We've seen last week versus Baltimore, Giants couldn't stop their run, and that game started to get away from them. And they were lucky to finally be able to, get a few plays here and there, catch a couple breaks, and play good and play hard, and they were able to come back and win. But nothing is more defeating than, one, allowing a team to run all over you, and especially, two, run right up the middle on you. So look for Leo to hold it down. Next up, Tay Crowder. Tay Crowder, to me, has also had an up and down year. He's super active. He gets a ton of tackles, always seems to be around the ball, but always kind of seems to be on the end of that bad big play, where he kind of gets, bulldozed, or he doesn't have the strength or the body to really push through the block. This is going to be a big game for him because he's going to have Leo up front. He's going to have Dexter. He's going to be free a lot. He needs to make sure he doesn't get any guards on him blocking him. He needs to not be blocked by tight ends. He needs to rip and shed, and he needs to stop this running game along with the defensive line and the other linebackers. We'll go Jacksonville. My players to watch on Jacksonville starts with Josh Allen. Have to contain him. Could not let him harass, haunt, and taunt Daniel Jones all game. Daniel Jones is not great under pressure. Not many quarterbacks are. So Josh Allen has to get shut down, whether that's Neal, whether that's Andrew Thomas, because you also have Trayvon Walker on the other side who could rush the passer. So it's going to be a really interesting matchup. You're going to have the two young tackles of the Giants going against the two young stud edge rushers of Jacksonville. And I think you could probably look at it in a lot of ways that might be what decides the game, because if the Giants could stop those two edge rushers and do what they want and drop back and take their time and run the ball and stay in their offense, the Giants could win easily. But if the Jags get pressure, either one of those sides, both those sides, if they're running stunts and they're tricking Feliciano and they're harassing Jones and Jones is having an emergency scramble, could be a rough game for the Giants offense because I don't think their offense is fully there yet. So that's going to be one of my big matchups to watch. Christian Kirk, came from Arizona to Jacksonville, got the huge contract. A lot of people were like, whoa, what's going on? 25 catches, 362 yards, 4 touchdowns, really doing his thing for Jacksonville. Giants have to cover him. You would imagine Adoree is going to be on him for most of the game. Make sure you get someone on him super fast, could take the top off of the defense, and he's somebody the Giants need to cover. Now we'll go for everybody's favorite part of the show, predictions. In looking at this game, I think the Jags and Giants are both going to try to establish the run early. I think the Giants do a better job of running the ball than the Jags will in this game. I think Barkley is really hitting his stride. I think also the Giants will use him in the passing game to open up the run game. I also think this Giants defense is starting to hit its stride also. And, when you're playing against a younger quarterback in Trevor Lawrence, who has shown a propensity to make the big mistake this season, let's be honest. Giants are going to be attacking. Wink has done a phenomenal job. The Giants are like 8th in points allowed for defense. And that's with basically missing, Aaron Robinson for the most of the year. Cordero Flott for most of the year. Leo missed a couple of games. Aziz has missed a couple of games. Wink has really been a magician when it comes to this defense. I think that continues Sunday. Giants win 27-20. That's my prediction. Daniel Jones continues his progress, especially in the second half. Barkley tops 100 total yards. I think he gets active in the air. Also seeing Wan'Dale Robinson going to be active this weekend. Watch out for him. Shifty, great route runner. But all in all, I think this Giants team is ascending. They're ascending at the right time. The Jags have been the, Jekyll and Hyde team, and those teams you can't count on. It's hard to pick a Jekyll and Hyde team to win because you don't know which team will show up. But I think the Giants show up. I think they get their 6th win. A couple favorable games down the stretch. This one won't be easy, but I'm going G-Men. And that's it for today's show. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, turn notifications on. Really means the world to me when we get subscribers. Check me out on Twitter at TommyG105. A lot of you already have. Thank you. Check out the Giants country team, and we'll be doing this all season long. Peace.